Hello and welcome to the podcast Off With Their Heads, where we'll be asking the question, where is the artist formerly known as the future Queen? With today's panel of royal experts, we will consider, is she still alive, or has she been beaten by the noble Prince of Pegging? Oh, sorry, that's the other podcast I'm on. Sorry, lads. Hello, this is the Celtic World. That's right, from Wishaw to Windsor, from Bells Hill to Buckingham Palace. It's a Celtic world, and we're all equal parts of it. Joining us today, and born into equal levels of nobility and dignity, we have three of the finest gentlemen in all of the kingdom. Well, only one's in the kingdom, the other two have escaped to thrive in foreign lands. David in Malaysia, how you doing?
I'm okay apart from this honking cold, and I'm delighted to be here otherwise and not have to look through Twitter and view all references to somebody called Kate and this other guy, Willie, I don't know. But so good to be here.
Good to have you. And good to have you, Jerry, in Singapore.
Thank you, Gav. A pleasure as always. I'm well. Thank you for asking.
How are you?
Looking forward to... I'm well. Looking forward to the weekend. Looking forward to celebrating St Patrick's Day with the troops down in the pub. So I think the pub's open for 2 days. So not sure I'll be feeling so well on Monday.
Yeah, you seem to have a big sequence of events going on there.
We do indeed. I sent that to you the other day. The pub are giving away 1,759 free pints of Guinness from 1759 on Saturday.
What they give it to everybody else?
I'll see how many of those I can consume.
I know that's just the start. That's just a warm-up for you.
Yeah, I did 3 hours of exercise today. 3 hours of exercise every day this week, actually, and I'm going to do the same tomorrow, just to make sure I'm match fit for the occasion. Yeah.
Well, the other person who's match fit, of course, is Michael in Glasgow. How are you doing, Michael?
Yeah, I'm good. Quietly optimistic about the weekend. I'm really hopeful that Celtic can maybe put in a good performance and it will take us top of the league for however long.
However long, indeed. Well, here's what we're going to be talking about today. Number one is the competition that we started last week, which is going to be running for for 3 more streams. And then we'll be talking about the state of us, the state of our squad, where we're at this stage of the game. A little segment on transfers past and future, the St Johnstone preview, and then Celtic socials. So that's the idea. Hello to everyone who's already there and saying hello in the comments. Frank Kennedy, Mickey Burns from sunny Italy. That's our Mickey.
Ciao.
Christophe from La France. Anybody else watched Napoleon yet? Speaking of Off With Their Heads, that's when it begins. Okay. All right. So, yes, the first thing we're going to talk about is the Paddy McCourt competition. Now, rather than me repeat everything that we said on the last show, I'm going to play a little segment from the last episode. And as always in StreamYard, you never know when you play these videos whether the volume comes across to the viewer. So the likes of Christophe and Frank and Mickey, please let us know immediately if this volume is too low and you can't hear it. Otherwise, I'm going to let it play through. Okay, here we go. We have 2 tickets to be given away free to 2 of you, our subscribers, to the Axom Evening with Paddy McCourt. You've probably all heard of Axom, I imagine. It's his other little rival YouTube channel, very much like us, much the same size.
Yeah, it's very minor.
Paddy McCourt is appearing with them at Grace's on the 4th of April. So we've got a little video to intro this. So that's exciting. Oh, it's not
Quite.
finished. Let me explain the details, Dano. I can see you're very keen to understand exactly what's going on here. So, if it's something that's of interest to you to go to this night, you can get free tickets through us. And obviously, with a little channel like a Celtic World, you have a much bigger chance than with these bigger outlets. So, how do you win? Well, over the next 4 streams of a Celtic World, listen out for the word Paddy and take note of the word that immediately follows it. So the answer is a series of 4 words, 1 in each episode, if you like. Take note of these 4 words and send your answer to us via any of the social media channels that are currently rolling across the bottom of the screen, or send us an email. The email's there as well. So the Paddy mention won't be part of the instructions that we're going to give on each of these shows sometime later in the show. And it isn't necessarily Paddy McCourt we're going to be talking about. Probably won't be. Just the sound Paddy. Understood?
With you all the way, Gav.
Loud and clear.
Okay, good stuff.
I have a question though. Since this is a Celtic World, are flights included in this competition?
You'll have to take that up with a certain Paul John Dykes. So there you go. That's pretty exciting. Hey.
I'm now glad I said St Patrick's Day and not Paddy's Day.
All right. I would like to exclude that Paddy from the competition. The Paddy mention will appear sometime after 20 minutes. So if everyone doesn't behave themselves, this could turn into mayhem, you know. Just annoying me by randomly saying
Paddy's
that.
Market it'll turn into, yeah.
I would like to exclude that one also from the competition. Thank you for still staying with us and not tuning out. I'm not going to read this one out anyway, just because it could be a problem. But hail, hail, happy celebration. Hope you all have a blast. Best wishes. Right. And San Fran Celtic is also in the house. All right. Good stuff. So, yeah, listen out. It'll be pretty obviously it'll be pretty obvious when it happens. Stephen's already falling asleep because of the difficulties of explaining the competition. All right, well, let's move it on, shall we? First thing we're going to talk about is the state of us. David, you've missed quite a lot of the recent action. You've been poorly, you've had guests, you've been sent away for work and stuff. So we're about to go into the international break. This is the last game before the international break. Michael, would you like to start off with talking about who's not available for this game and who we hope to be available after the break?
Well, that's a situation in itself with Lewis Palmer. I was reading in recent days Brendan Rodgers talking about how he had a knock and he missed the last game, but he has been called up for Honduras, and the Honduras manager said that he is the first name in the team sheet. And Honduras themselves have a Nations League semi-final game against Costa Rica, so it's most likely he will travel and start that game. So it'll be interesting to see whether he plays at the weekend. Whether he doesn't, he might play some part. I think he's almost recovered, but at the same time, to have to go away with Costa Rica, Honduras, and travel the world, it's going to be difficult for him. Callum McGregor, that's yet another situation in itself. The Daily Record were reporting a couple of days ago that Callum McGregor was out for the season, but then they changed shift on that, and they actually deleted the words saying that McGregor was out for the season, which is interesting to do that, to put that in the middle of an article. It wasn't even a full article they dedicated to McGregor being out for the season, so that confused a lot of fans. Rodgers done a little interview the other day with Celtic TV, and he didn't discuss McGregor, and instead focused on Cameron Carter-Vickers. And so Carter-Vickers is allegedly supposed to be back training today or tomorrow. But for me, I think we should rest Carter-Vickers. He hasn't been called up to the USA squad, which is a welcome sight because we've seen things like that happen in the past. Hatate picks up an injury whilst on international duty with Japan, and he's been out ever since. So it's become a real problem for Celtic with these injuries, and to have such crucial players pick them up And with Palma, I think Palma will be a great option off the bench if maybe Maeda's not been effective. So we'll need him in the second part of the season.
And who else can we talk about in a similar breath? I mean, Yang is also in that same boat, isn't he? Jerry, we're missing him, I think, for tomorrow. But
I believe
hoping
so.
he's going to be back.
Red card stuff, was it?
Yeah. Oh no, for sure. So yeah, I mean, to be honest, I thought Kuhn had his best, at least 45 minutes in a Celtic jersey last weekend. So I'd be happy enough with Kuhn and Dyson, who scored 3, could have scored 7 or 8 more, and again looked as though it was the first day I'd ever seen a football at times last weekend. But I mean, last weekend was, our defending was absolutely horrific, and it scares me that we'd. I mean, I actually don't think that Welsh and Scales could have a worse game this weekend than they had last weekend. So, but certainly looking forward to international break being over, Gav, and hopefully having a fit Callum back, a fit CCV back, and all the others that, you know, I think will be hopefully we're a different team post the international break.
Okay, so David, you haven't been around that much, but are you picking up the vibes that, you know, this is like our last roll of the dice? You know, forever this season we've been talking about whenever so-and-so gets back and whenever such and such gets back. And we're still saying the same thing.
Still saying the same thing. If only we didn't have injuries, if only we had so-and-so back. I think we got a massive lift from that 7-1 game, and I thought everybody was kind of thinking that's where we go next. That's the turning point, and that didn't turn out to be the turning point. And then we get into situations where obviously we get into all sorts of disputes around cards and referee situations and discussions about this. And for me, I mean, while I had sympathy that we, you know, there was reason to start discussing it with the authorities, but you knew there was nothing going to come back from that. But underlying all of that is simply that we don't have a very good squad. We don't have bench strength. We've given away our best players. We are injury prone as well. And I think still Brendan Rodgers, I think he hid behind some of the refereeing decisions, because I still don't feel he can get the best out of this team. And when we look forward to next game, which we'll do later in the show, I still think it's with trepidation. I don't think any of us are confident. Jerry's talked about the dangers of guys who we thought were consistent at the back, and now last game, big concern. This is the story of our season. I don't think we have a turning point. I think we just got to suck this up and hopefully get through somehow to the end of the season. That's where I'm at.
Well, in the last show, we were talking to Steve, and, you know, we broached the subject of the unthinkable quadruple, as they call it.
Mm-hmm.
And like he was saying, well, that's not going to happen. But, you know, the treble is becoming a distinct possibility. And it was all quite downbeat. And, you know, are we going to be able to get past them when we play them? And the title of this show is being the sense that we're on the cliff's edge. You know, one more slip up and it could be fatal. Michael, are you feeling more positive and confident than that?
Yeah, definitely. I feel like with Hatate coming back, that'll definitely help the side. And for me as well, we went into the winter break in good form and we've come out the last side in bad form with our results. So it could be a positive, that little international break. Give Brendan Rodgers a bit of time in the training pitch to work with the players who aren't away in international duty. So for me, there's positives to be gained. And with Yang, I think we've seen Yang really come to the fore before his red card. For me, he should be playing off the right-hand side. And it's for Kuhn to force himself into the starting 11. When he's playing this weekend, you want to see, can Kuhn score a goal or provide an assist? That would be the reason for him to challenge Yang. The squad's really beginning for me to see our best starting 11. I think the team that played against Dundee, with the exception of maybe Awata for Hattati, that would be the team for me. So I'm starting to begin to see our best starting 11, which is concerning at this stage of the season. It's took that long. But I think Brendan Rodgers will know that himself. The best players to line up, and with the biggest games coming, with a split, we're even going to play Rangers twice before the end of the season in the league and possibly in the Scottish Cup. There is positives to be hold, but it's been such a difficult season with injuries. But that's also quite an excuse, because I do think Rangers have had injuries themselves and have managed it. It's down to the manager themselves, Brendan Rodgers, to manage injuries. You look at across the city, it seems to be every day one of their players is getting injured. So we have to be able to deal with that. Rangers do have a bigger wage bill than us currently because we've downsized in some aspects, but that's for us to manage that. So it's going to be so difficult to judge whether Celtic can win the league or even the Scottish Cup with the way the season's went till now. But for me, we've got to this stage of the season. We've not played great. We're still in contention for the league and the Scottish Cup. It's all in our own hands. So it's up to the manager and the players to get behind each other and work together and work through what problems we've had from the beginning of the season and win those titles.
Stirring words there from Michael. Jerry, are you standing shoulder to shoulder?
I'm in
with
the yeah. I'm in
Michael
this.
on the podium, ready to grab the
on.
mic and give a rousing speech as well.
I'm absolutely on the Michael bus as well. I think we've got some of our better players coming back into the team again. I think I agree with David. The 7-1 game was a glimpse of what the team can do when we've got better players on the pitch and playing the way that we want to play football. I said in the last show that I certainly hope Rangers get a result this evening. I think another 2 games for them in Europe. I think the second leg will be immediately before the game at Greyskull, and hoping and praying that that injury list of theirs continues to grow.
Absolutely. I'm sure you've checked the schedule and you know that point is coming up later, Jerry. So we can go.
All right. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Being a good
there you
student
go.
And everything.
So certainly, I mean, Brendan said it before. I mean, it's in our hands, right? I mean, weekend before last, was disappointing against Hearts when we had an opportunity to go top of the league. But I mean, it certainly hasn't changed. And I've said it before. I mean, Brendan doesn't lose to Rangers. He certainly doesn't. He's only ever lost 1 game to Rangers when it didn't matter. So confident that we can at least take a point at Greyskull and hump them at Parkhead. Now, the
fans of
challenges
cartoons will know that, of course, it's not Greyskull, it's Snake Mountain. Greyskull is where He-Man lives. Snake Mountain is where Skeletor is from. Michael, is that well before your time? Do you know what we're talking about?
Skeletor, and that's pretty before my time. He-Man. I've heard of it. I've seen memes of it, but not too much.
There you go. There's always Castle Greyskull. Was always Castle Greyskull for me. I guess with Skeletor now, Snake Mountain perhaps, but I think we just need to get some consistency, and again, confident we can get a result at the weekend and take that into international break.
Okay. I was going to tell Michael that in the last couple of shows we've been talking about Danger Mouse. Does that mean anything to you?
No, absolutely not.
I mean, this show is
We've been
not
talking about
kids.
Penfold, actually, Michael. That's who we're talking about. We're talking about Penfold.
This show is not for the kids. So we've only got 1 game to go before the break, and then Livingston before the Glasgow Derby when we come back. So I'm heartened to see some positivity both from you and from people in the comments, because personally I'm not feeling particularly positive, and I know the likes of Stephen certainly isn't. So we're still in it somehow. It's still, there's nothing between the teams in terms of the league, really. It's up for grabs. It's fair to say, right, David? You feeling strong?
So again, I can only go on what's being presented to me. Every time I've wanted to be as positive as possible, I've been let down. Do I think there's much between the teams? Not much. I don't think they're particularly a massive threat, but they are on a roll at the moment, are they not? And they've not given away the points that we have. And I think, look, Brendan Rodgers does have a very good record against Rangers, and that's a thing for him. But you don't just beat them to win the league, right? A very good manager is able to beat all the smaller teams, which he's not been so able to do. So I go with what I've been seeing.
Michael Ross is slightly less on the positive bus. He's dreading that fixture. And contrast that with San Fran Celtic. Beat them again at Ibrox and we win the league. And then somewhere in between, Maestro. We win on Saturday and take it from there. So we've got all bases covered, I think it's fair to say. Mahesh there mentioned something that you just touched on, Jerry. Rangers may not be the problem. More concerned about drop points due to low blocks and opposition limiting O'Reilly's and Palma's attacking contribution. Well, we're going to talk about that more when we come on to the St Johnstone preview, because that's basically the name of the game there. So, as we said, David, you've been away a little while. Welcome back. Haven't seen so much of you. What have you been up to? You've been travelling and been away with work and...
Yep, had visitors in town, took the bike out for a while, which I haven't done for a very long time. We've got some beautiful scenery, etc. around KL. So if you go from here, say, to... Does this make any sense to anybody? But there's some fairly stunning... KL being a massive... It's a huge sprawling city for anybody that hasn't yet been here. Massively urban. But as soon as you leave KL, you get into some absolutely stunning... of landscapes going up to the limestone hills, the palm tree farms, the fish farms, the paddy fields, everything. The winding roads are there and they're completely free. I mean, there's no one there. So getting the chance to get out of the city and stuff has been great. Taking the opportunity for people to come in, do wee food tours, been magic.
It's gorgeous. The thought of you out in your couple of big bikes named after Celtic heroes.
Yep. Caesar and Larson.
Cruising past with a backdrop of paddy fields, you say?
Yes, many of them.
Oh, that's lovely. David,
I was just going to say I'm actually in KL on Monday night next week. David, by the way, I was going to send you a note. Just booked the flights.
This coming, and the very night I fly to Vietnam.
Okay, well, I won't see you then.
that's
probably a good thing.
International jet set, Michael, huh? Types of guys you're hanging with.
That's right, you guys, you come hang about with us. Eh?
But Michael's been pretty busy as well, I note. I spotted him here on the Here Celts podcast with Quinny. Is that a regular thing, Michael? You appearing with them quite a lot?
Yeah, it's usually every couple of weeks, because there's only so much you can really digest with Celtic. I suppose you sometimes need to take a wee week off, and I'm appearing in a few podcasts, so I'm just trying to mix it around.
Oh.
It was interesting to speak about Celtic. Don't worry, Celtic World was always number one for me.
Oh, come on now. See, I feel like you're our Ben Doak. You know, you're going to be stolen by some other bigger, shinier podcast. We took you in, we polished you up, made you a better podcast contributor. And then
We
you're
took
just going to
Hamish
leave.
in, took Anthony Haggerty in. Look at them now. Everybody just...
Yeah.
We are literally Celtic. If you
They'd be nothing without us.
career, you come through
No,
us.
we're only joking, of course, Michael. You're in big demand for good reason, obviously. Go ahead, you were saying?
We'll just talk about Celtic and everything that's really been going on. It's been an interesting time, to say the least, this season. I don't think anybody looking back from August would have predicted the league season would have went how it's went. Even it began so badly with the League Cup as well. Nobody really saw that result against Kilmarnock coming. We've consistently struggled against them. So looking back and everything, it's been a weird season. I think that's the best way to put it for me. Injuries, we've not really played greatly. So we're hopeful that we can just really salvage our season in the coming months, aren't we? It's not been what anybody's expected. We maybe thought Brendan Rodgers would come in and would possibly get better in some ways, but we really haven't, with the odd occasional good performance maybe in the Champions League against Atletico Madrid, etc. So that was really just all we were speaking about in that podcast as well. Celtic's just been a disappointing season, but if we can still salvage it, I'll be happy in the end, because realistically, that's when leagues and cups are won at the end of the season.
Yeah, very true, very true. And I also read an article that you wrote, which I'll just pull up here, which was on the Celtic Exchange. And this was like an in-depth look at all of the signings made under Mark Lawwell.
Well, he certainly made plenty of them. There was 21 in total. I think the last couple he maybe wasn't too involved in, with maybe Ida. I think Brendan Rodgers was more involved with the agent in that. Celtic's got a history of speaking to agents. But for me, he was in the role just under 2 years, and we've had 3 heads of recruitment in 6 years, which is a damning indictment. So realistically, is 3 heads of recruitment not up to the standard, or is it a bigger issue within the football department that's maybe the problem? So to get rid of 3 heads of recruitment in that period of time is just not a good look. You want consistency at that level of the club. Maybe you could excuse managers, because the spell of managers maybe only a couple of years or even a year now, but for the head of recruitment not to last that long, it shows that there's a greater issue within the club. And I think maybe even a director of football or something would solve that. It gives somebody the full responsibility for that department without it all falling on the head of recruitment themselves. That's not to say that Mark Lawwell was successful in the role, because he clearly wasn't. Who did he really sign that's made the team a better side? But for me, I think it's a greater issue for Celtic, the scouts, the head of recruitment. Everybody needs to work on this, and for me, I think there will be a clear out in the summer, and it's already began. Brendan Rodgers is already talking about what he's planning to do next season, how he can improve this side. So it looks likely that Brendan Rodgers is just going to bring in his guys, and with Dermot Desmond loving Brendan Rodgers and seriously wanting him to come to the club in the summer, it looks like it's all going to be Brendan Rodgers' guys in that department from now on.
Okay, so the first thing to say about that is it sounds like Rodgers is going to be around next season, come rain, hail, or shine, from the sounds of what you're saying there, Michael. Now, Lawwell's just gone. We've got still a good stretch of time to come before the end of the season. Do you not think we're going to be looking for candidates to replace him or make any of these changes before the end of the season, whether it's head of recruitment, director of football? Does anyone, Jerry, do you think it would be sensible to get people in early doors, or are we going to do the usual thing and piss around and kick our heels?
I think it'd be sensible. I mean, it's not like signing a football player. I mean, I think it'd be sensible to go and try and identify candidates. I'm sure they are. I'm sure they're out looking for candidates just now. I mean, obviously that's a department. That whole scouting recruitment department hasn't gone away because Lawwell and his number 2 have left the building. So I mean, they'll still be doing work on identifying players, etc. But yeah, I think the sooner we get someone in that seat, the better. I was actually just trying to Google what the average tenure of a head of recruitment was at a football club. Unsurprisingly, I couldn't find any data on it. But yeah, I mean, that's certainly an area that we could do with some consistency, and I would say in that department in general, and clearly going through a process that involves more than just tapping up someone's son is probably a good idea.
I was talking to my friend who was in visiting. We were having the chance to chill out away from shows and stuff like that. But one of the things that I thought about was that the departure of Lawwell's son was a direct influence of Brendan Rodgers. Because if you play it out, and I was playing out the scenario for this one in sense of what makes sense, what changes have come about, and where would they have come from. I've never bought into the idea that all the hatchets had been buried when Rodgers came back between him and Peter Lawwell. That just didn't make sense. And Peter Lawwell is an influential guy. He gets his way. I felt that if you look at it and see how has this transpired, how has this been, what has Brendan Rodgers' behaviour been over the season, etc., it's been erratic. And I think he definitely was influenced by what he had to do to get back on side with the fans. I'm not sure he fully did that, but I think he had sympathy for the fans because of the way the board played out with the Green Brigade, etc. And everybody sort of really had an issue, and well done on the new top coming out. Nothing cynical about that. But if you think about it, Brendan Rodgers, if you think that he has influenced Mark Rowell leaving, then it stands to reason that more is yet to come in that place. So I think what you might see, I think you could even see Peter Lawwell leave. That's a possibility, that his time, his budgets, his methods, his overall philosophy isn't working anymore. And now it depends whether or not he's a bigger friend of Dermot than Brendan. But certainly enough has been said and written recently that there's a close relationship between Brendan and Dermot. And then you get this sort of drip feed of 9 million as the figure. It was ridiculous to go for the 3 million, 23-year-old 3 million player. And now we suddenly get this idea of 9 million pound players coming in, 3 rather than 6 players coming in. I think it's entirely possible that we will see big changes through the summer and that Brendan will be here next season. That's my guess.
For me, I think looking at big clubs, look at Liverpool. Liverpool's dying to get Michael Edwards back in the building as director of football when Klopp leaves. There was a bit of a power struggle between the two of them, but I think Liverpool's looked at the signings he was able to make. All the best clubs in the world all have directors of football. Manchester City as well. So Celtic haven't had a director of football. We're years behind in that aspect. Even European sides like Ajax, they're very focused on having this director of football who oversees that whole department, and they're really held accountable. I think holding the head of recruitment solely responsible is a bit of an issue. It should be the director of football who's the top man, and then maybe the head of recruitment who's second and being held to account. So that's the big problem for me. We're years behind other clubs. Even Rangers have had heads of recruitments and directors of football in the previous years. They were able to get someone in before the new year and look at how they got signings in. So I don't know why we're not looking at these clubs and thinking we need a director of football to ease that burden on the head of recruitment, because it's no coincidence that people are all lasting round about 2 years in a row at Celtic. That's no commonplace at other clubs. You look at even Dan Ashworth in England. He's been touted by tons of clubs. He was at Brighton, now he's at Newcastle, and now Manchester United want him. All these big clubs are becoming really focused on who's scouting the players, who's the director of football, whereas we're not looking so much at that. We're just looking to blame the head of recruitment. So realistically, it should be a leader in charge in that position, somebody experienced. But with Scottish football, I don't think there's somebody that would suit that role. They were talking about Jack Ross. For me, I don't think Jack Ross is a man to become Celtic's director of football.
You're muted, Gav.
I'm sorry, I don't know if you heard the little puppy squeaking there. Somebody's got a new dog. The way you're talking is like Rodgers is going to be in charge. He is going to be in charge for the 3 seasons. He's bringing in his own men. I don't know if I like the sound of that at all, because it involves Rodgers. And is that really the best way forward for our club? I mean...
Well, I think that, he was brought back, wasn't he, with that clear strategy in mind, right? I mean, we're going to get used to it. And then he leaves again, then what happens? So we have to find someone else. They're not that brilliant. They're not that great at finding managers, are they? I think they got lucky with Ange.
Certainly. But I mean, Rodgers hasn't done much to cover himself in glory this season, has he? I know there's mitigating factors and all, but what's he done?
No, I don't think he's done enough at all.
And now he's talking positively about the summer transfer activity, like we haven't heard all this before. Are there too many moving parts at this stage to consider what our summer transfer activity might look like? Is that a conversation for a future date, or is it worth even considering?
I think it's a conversation for a later date. I think there's a bunch of players we've got in the squad today and a bunch of them that we've now got on long-term contracts that are highly likely to leave during the summer window. Some that have been discussed on many occasions before, but I think we could have a whole discussion and look at the squad and the ones that you want to get rid of, and I think there'll be a bunch that we wouldn't like to see the back of that will go during the summer window. And again, I do think that as David said earlier, and listen to Brendan speak this week, I'm pretty sure we'll see a fairly active window in terms of Brendan bringing in the players that he wants to play in the style and manner that he wants the team to play.
But Mahesh just made a really good point about the problem is for Celtic is that there's a whole bunch of much bigger teams in terms of financial influence that are playing in that sort of 5 to 10 million mark range. But here's the problem then again. We're not very good in the 3 million range either, are we? In terms of, Michael's, that article from Michael's fantastic. If you haven't read it, read that article. We're not particularly good in that range. If we have to compete in that market, which seems to be the drip feed that we're getting, then planning, etc., has to be in place. But the internal shenanigans going on within the club, I do not think it's a unified or well thought out club at the moment. I think it's lack of, even, I know it's a small thing, but it mounts up after time. But this, fifth strip, how out of touch do you need to be with your supporters to be able to come out with something like that? I get the commercial aspect of it. I guess that's your job, but I'm bothered that there's not enough in place in terms of proper, well thought out structure, and it could be a reaction, Gav. That's what we've got to deal with. It's Brendan, and that's it.
And just on that point, I suspect that's part of the contract with Adidas as much as anything, David. And I for one ordered 2 tops, 2 tracky tops, and 2 hoodies. So
you're the problem, Jerry.
I am the problem.
When the buying stops, the fucking around can too.
The market's too stale in March. The English market's slowed it down to buy tops.
But to your point, David, you don't get much for £3 million, right? That's a challenge. Yeah. I mean, you're literally taking a punt, and again, Michael's article demonstrates supremely well. And a lot of those players we didn't pay $3 million for. But I mean, if you go and have a look at the players that we bought recently in that bracket, I mean, probably Ali Johnston's the only one you would say that. Obviously we got a snip for Matt O'Reilly, but Ali Johnston's the only one recently that you could say that that has come into the team and made a difference in that type of price bracket. And the problem is you're not getting any guarantees now at £10 million players either.
No. Wait, just out of interest, but sorry, Gav, just one last question on this then before we go on. Who was our last most expensive player, and was it under Brendan Rodgers, and was it around the 9 million mark? I think it was, wasn't it?
Eddie, I think.
Eddie, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think so. Michael probably knows, but I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, were you saying how much, David? Were you talking about the last player that was the highest transfer fee?
Yeah, the highest transfer fee. I think it was about the 9 million mark. And I think it was Edward. I think it was.
But
the comments will tell us.
How many players did Brendan Rodgers get to sign in his first spell as manager? He got to sign maybe Moussa Dembele, Scott Sinclair, but then in the second season that seemed to dry up. And okay, we did sign Edward for 9 million, but there wasn't too many players that were signed for that sort of fee. So that's the problem as well. Do we trust Celtic to actually give Brendan Rodgers that money, which is insane to say about a club with a manager in charge? Why would you hire somebody in a role if you don't want to financially back them? That wouldn't make any sense in any other sort of business in the world. It just would make no sense. You're talking about the summer there. We spent 20 million as well, around about 20 million in the summer. Yeah. So, and then 23 million all in, probably including Kuhn. So we've spent a decent bit of money, and I know we got good money for Jota, but 23 million's a good bit of money for even Scottish football to think you should dominate the other teams and you could win games with relative ease. But we haven't done that. We've spent good money on players, but it's just realistically the majority. It's just all been a waste. Even Palmer tripped in with decent goals and assists here and there, but is he better than Jota? No, he's not. I think he's only a year younger than Jota as well. So we'd need to compare Palmer now to where Jota was at this stage last season, and he's nowhere near that level. So it's just been a disaster.
Do you not get the feeling from Palmer though that he can be coached to stop doing the things that the blind alleys he doesn't run into, if you know what I mean?
I would play with
because the things he does well, when he's good, he's very, very good, and when he's bad, he's horrid, right? Can he not be coached to do the right things that we need from him? I mean, because he's a very gifted player when he feels like it.
I think he's born to be a number 10, to be honest, because if he's playing in the middle of the edge of the box, he can't cut inside if he's already there. That's where he looks comfortable. He constantly looks to want to take shots off on the edge of the box. So why not move him to a number 10? Because I know he's always played as a winger, but it's clear that he struggles in that part of the game, hugging the touchline, going down the outside. And even when he has played crosses into the box, they have been effective. You've seen that the goal against Motherwell, what he was able to do, even against Aberdeen earlier in the season, he was effective. But I think he's got these bad habits, and do Celtic really need to take that out of a player? And who's scouting a player and looking at them and saying, oh, he's not really that much like Jota or Maeda, he's not got that maybe unpredictability that they both had, whereas Palma's just so predictable. And against these defences who look to camp in against Celtic week in, week out, that's not what we need to win games, and it's been proven all season.
Yeah, I just get the
Poor
feeling
man's Mikey Johnson,
Palma,
Michael.
I get the feeling that
I think that's been maybe in some aspects proven a little with the pressure factor, because that's what people don't like to consider about playing for Celtic. There's so much pressure, and realistically, the teams you're playing, it's not exciting for you to play against them. You've got to try and work out a way of getting through them. Whereas Mikey Johnston, he's a Celtic fan, he would have been under tons of pressure, and albeit he's probably not good enough for Celtic, but in the Championship, he's got more space to work and drive past people, and you're not constantly playing against teams who look to camp in. So in some aspects, it's maybe better for some players outside of Celtic.
Yeah, I doubt that Palma feels a huge amount of pressure playing for Celtic. And I still think he can be coached to be a very, very productive player. But listen, on the note of Edouard, you triggered the thought that we should play a little message from one of our French viewers.
Hello all the Celtic fans. Here in France we love the Celtic world. C'est fantastique. Subscribe? C'est un fait accompli.
Yes, there you go. Have you subscribed? That's the question to everyone below. By the way, I don't know if you know this, but we're pushing for 1,000. You hear all these other YouTube channels talking about 15 and 25 and 30. We're pushing for 1,000 to get over that very important hurdle. And before we went live tonight, we were 11 short. 11. That's the number of players in a
11.
football team. You could
11.
be one of those 11 to get us 11 to get us up over that mark. So come on, your click makes a difference. It's just one click to subscribe. I mean, what could be easier, Michael, eh?
Yeah, what could be easier? I'm hopeful we'll get there in the next couple of weeks, probably. It takes time. They always say that the first 1,000 is probably the hardest, but after that, you sail through it. So I'm hopeful that's the case.
What are you talking about, Michael?
When it comes to subscribers on YouTube,
Oh, subscriber. Okay.
Pints of Guinness from 1759 on Saturday, David.
Exactly right.
after a certain time, after 11,
Yeah.
no problem.
Oh, there's Christophe is appreciative of our little French snippet there. Shared on his X account. And Michael Ross appears to be at least bilingual with his contribution. Ooh la la. All right, gentlemen, let's move it on then and talk about the St Johnstone, the St Johnstone preview. So our game is on March the 16th, and then they play on the 17th. We're at home to St Johnstone, they're away to Dundee. And that comes 3 days after their exertions against Benfica at home, which is tonight's game. Now, Jerry was champing at the bit earlier to talk about what he wants from their exertions in Europe. So, Jerry, take it away.
2-2 draw, extra time, and Rangers going through in penalties would be optimal as far as I'm concerned, Gav.
And what's that you say about an injury list?
And an extensive injury list. I mean, there have not been enough ambulances from the closest hospital to what am I can't call it Castle Grayskull. What? Snake Mountain, sorry. So the Snake Mountain, the Royal Infirmary at Snake Mountain, running out of ambulances to pick people up from players up, I hasten to add, from Ibrox to get them there. Yeah, I mean, I'd love to see Benfica win, but I would like Rangers, and I never want Rangers to win, obviously, but I think in terms of this season, we're about at another couple of games for them. Just 2 more after this in Europe would be good, in my opinion, to have them puffed out.
Are we all agreed on that, Michael? Do you think it would benefit us to have them get a few more fixtures and tired and
I think
post-European matches?
There's 2 ways of looking at it, really. You talk about the injuries, they'll pick up more injuries. I think the further they get in the tournament, with the exception of the final, I wouldn't be too bothered with it, because realistically, the coefficient points, you're talking about Czech Republic are apparently catching Scotland, and they've got 3 teams still in Europe. So for Celtic, at the end of the day, we have benefited for that at times, getting into the Champions League outright in the past season or so. So as long as they don't get to the final, I wouldn't be too bothered. And it means they have to play more games, injuries. But they don't seem to be like Celtic in that aspect, whereas we seem to get a player injured and they're out for months. It seems to be, this player will miss a game or here, and then they're back. They've got that wee bit of luck in that aspect. In comparison to us, you look at Hatate, Carter Vickers, and even maybe McGregor now. We've had that bit of unfortunate when it comes to how long these players have been out injured.
And then they come
It's
back
either-
and
it's
they're
either
for
that-
2 minutes and away again.
It's either them getting another couple of games or just being entirely humiliated. Humiliation's always good as well, but I would take humiliation as well. But an extra couple of games, I think, would be more beneficial for us for the rest of the season.
There's a danger, though, I think, here in that their confidence grows, right, to the point whereby, and it plays a large part. It certainly played, we know that it has played a part in what's happened for our players, that, the reaction from the support has affected players. I've got an issue that if they do progress, then the confidence grows and they bring it, because I don't think there's much between us. On paper, it should be that we are running away with this league. That makes sense if you look at it, but that's just not what's occurring. I'm not confident enough to start playing around with the idea that they can go and get some extra legs, maybe pick up some injuries, and that'll suit us. I'm not that confident. I don't want to see. Yeah, I'd rather them just get hammered out. I don't want to see them confidence build. That's
nice and straightforward.
That's
I'll tell you what, at the start of the season, if you'd said that there was one of the 2 clubs would have already won 1 cup and be top of the league and still in Europe after Christmas, you'd have been licking your lips at the prospect, thinking it was us.
Yep.
Hard to believe how they've turned their season around and their fortunes.
And we've helped.
It really is. And yeah. I mean, to whatever extent they've grown, we have dropped by a factor of 5 or 10. I mean, it's ridiculous. All right. Well, anyway, we're playing against St Johnstone. Perth is also known as the Fair City. Can anyone tell me why?
Because fairs came to town and it was a trading. I don't know.
How are you spelling fair? F-A-I-R or F-A-R-E?
F-A-I-R, as in the Fair Maid of Perth.
Oh, beautiful.
By Sir Walter Scott. This is the gentleman who wrote Ivanhoe and also Rob Roy. You may have seen the film starring my very close friend Liam Neeson.
Ivanhoe.
And look, we're trying to be highbrow here, Jerry. Come on.
That's what I heard when you said it.
And there's another novel that he wrote here, to bring it back to the football. There's another novel written by Sir Walter Scott which inspired the name of another SPFL team. Any guesses?
No, got nothing.
The book is called The Heart of Midlothian.
Midlothian.
Oh.
There you go.
Yeah. Not
See, you're supposed to
inspired
spit
then.
on the heart of Midlothian.
Yes,
When
but you
go
do.
there.
Absolutely.
I think that says it all.
You're walking down the high street and you spit on the heart of Midlothian.
Okay, so let me see. Let us share this. This is the table as it currently stands. There we are in 2nd. They're in 9th. And I know what you're wondering. You're wondering, well, table shows one thing. What about the form table? Oh, damn it. Not that.
I can tell you if you want.
Here's the form table. Now look how we've dropped away. We talked the last time about turning that last little square into a tasty W. There's my wife's phone going off. Would you like to talk amongst yourselves about the form while I press mute?
Well, that is actually quite the worry, isn't it? Because if statistics have got anything to go by and you're reliant on them, that doesn't look good at all, does it? It tells a story of quite an issue for us in terms of where we actually are in reality for our overall performances. I was going to go to statistics for the St Johnstone game. So 57 games, we've won 44, they've won 4, and there's drawn of 8. So I was thinking that would help us something, but as I look at that, it's not going to help us, is it?
The game earlier in the season as well, I was actually at Celtic Park for that game, and that was real. I think that for me, that was one of the beginnings of the start. The worries for me this season, you were at St Johnstone had lost the first 2 games of the season 2-0 in the league, and they come to Celtic Park, and you're thinking, oh, this is just going to be another easy win, but it wasn't. They got a 0-0 draw, and even when we played them again away later in the season, it took to the second half. We were 1-0 down at half time, but they turned it around. So it's by no means going to be an easy game, but I think that's down to us. That's not down to the opposition, in my opinion. It's for us to attack them and find a way through to win games, and we've just not been doing that all season. Realistically, looking at the data and the goals we concede and the goals we score, on average, we're maybe conceding 0.1 more goals this season than last season, which isn't a big number, but we're scoring 0.5 less per game. So you're talking about that's half a goal every game less we're scoring than we did under Ange Postecoglou. So that's the big problem for me, but just only scoring enough goals. And as you speak about the data and the statistics, that reflects that. Whereas across the city, they're scoring more goals and their defensive record's comparable to ours. So defensively, we're only a huge problem when we've got Carter Vickers fit. That's a caveat I would add, but it's realistically just about the goals that we're not scoring and the chances that we are only creating. And I know we could speak about Dundee, but that seems to be the anomaly for this season, that we won 7-1. That hasn't happened too much.
Well, let's talk about our attacking players, and let's consider this tweet from Ken, who's going to be on quite soon, I hope. He says, I think it's fairly obvious Maeda is far better on the left, a bit like MJ, and should be played on the left. Looking at the Sevco game, I think Maeda starts on the left, but that right spot needs nailed down beforehand. Can only really be between Kun or Yang. What are your thoughts on that, Jerry?
I would agree with that. I think I mean that's certainly I would let's see how Kun does. I'm sure he'll start this weekend on the right. Hopefully Maeda starts on the left. Again, I thought he was possibly the best player, Celtic player in the park first half against Livy last weekend. Would like to see him getting a run now if he can, but and again, Yang the same, right? I mean, these players have just taken a bit of time to show anything. Yang was really starting to excite all of us, I think, before he got his red card the other week. So I would agree with that. I mean, I would have either one of them on the right. I'd have Maeda against both this weekend and Kun this weekend against the Rangers. I would have either of them down the right flank and Maeda down the left with Palma on the bench for sure.
Here's a bit of tactics from Mahesh talking about it. The form table doesn't show it, but Levine has about halved St Johnstone's XG against since taking over. So he's tightened up that ship considerably. Reckons this should be a more difficult prospect than Livy. I mean, we made it tough work against Livy, David. Did you? I'm sure you saw that game. And this is going to be the low block of all low blocks, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I think again with the teams that we should go in, where are St Johnstone in the league? What are they, about 9th at the moment? The statistics should suggest that we're going to play well, but if we look at our previous statistics of win against them, would suggest that we should be able to go into that game. But again, if we're talking about Kung or Yang as our starts, whether or not both of them have started to show some promise at this point in the league, that's where the problem lies. It's our inability to actually know. Michael suggested that we know our best team, probably because by Darwinian selection, this is what's left of what we've got. It's not been by management or coaching of Palma or otherwise. It's just that this is where we're at. We've got, what's the Hart, Taylor, Scales, Welsh, Johnston, Bernardo, Awata, O'Reilly, Kung, Ida, Maeda. O'Reilly's the only one in there that you would say has been consistent right across this entire season. Even his recent form, O'Reilly, has not been fantastic.
No, his recent form hasn't. There's a reason I chose him for the thumbnail of this show. It's like, as we get into this tail end of the season, the final furlong, we need our big players to really step up and start making it count. And he's been AWOL a fair bit in recent games, hasn't he? He's your boy. You're very close friends with his father, aren't you?
With his father and his mother, yeah. I mean, Brendan said he was out. He was ill all last week, and I mean, he certainly looked knackered last weekend. He didn't look great last weekend at all. But I mean, I would like to see Kyogo on from the start this weekend.
I think if a striker scores, what message does that send if you don't play them in the next game? You're right.
Yeah, and again, he looked supremely sharp. I mean, that goal that he took, that's just absolutely classic Kyogo, wasn't it? I mean, that was a joy. That was certainly a great way to finish that. The preceding 96 minutes were torturous to watch, but that was a joy. What a way to finish the game, and yeah, certainly hopeful that he does start the game this weekend.
Just quickly, I'll tell you what else is a joy. I currently see there's 155 people in the live stream. That's a new record. 152. Oh, it's just gone to 152. There was 155 where I said that. So that's very exciting. It's great. If you're new here, you're very welcome. Feel free to subscribe. Check out a few more episodes as they come up. Some of the times are going to change because we have contributors from all over the place. And the clocks are going to change at the end of this month, where you guys are, Michael. There's going to be a time change. We're not going to be always going out at 9:30 because we can't get people to come home from work early just to do this. So instead of having to try and keep up with the time, subscribe, ring the bell. You'll get notified when we're on. Takes the drama out of that. And of course, to win the McCourt competition, you have to be a subscriber. So there's myriad reasons for tickling that little subscribes. Just one click. One click. That's all it is. All right. Well, let's end off with Celtic social media choices. We only have a couple because David's been off social media for the past while. And Michael's been just too busy writing articles and being on other people's podcasts. So let's start with Jerry. This is yours.
Just topical because of the week. Just topical because of the weekend. That is. So, as I said, 1,759 free pints of Guinness been given away at the pub from 1759 on Saturday. So all we'd heard, and I just keep hearing my missus talking about this idiotic family for some reason. But that was I was probably sent. I mean, everyone's probably seen the one with people hiding behind the glass and stuff like that. But that was my pick of the funny royal family.
Could this be another curveball that helps our season? They get loads of injuries, and they also get distracted by the fact that their beloved royals are in absolute turmoil.
The sick are here, the sick are there, the sick are everywhere. Yeah.
I mean, I know we're clutching at straws and all, but yeah, mine's on a similar theme. We don't check with each other what they're going to be until they come forward, and this is mine. So, let's hope that the story doesn't take a darker turn, and that actually, is seen to be in terrible taste. But there's something very odd going on. There's no doubt about it. Odder than usual. All right, guys. That just about does it. Thanks to everyone in the comments. I'm sorry I couldn't pull up more of them, but like I say, it was busy tonight, and everyone's busy talking about players and the manager and the board, and busily talking amongst themselves, while also, I assume, listening to our incredibly fascinating conversation. So Mahesh here comes in with that could be Rodgers if he loses the league.
Well, that's a good one. I saw that. Just well done, Mahesh. You could be right.
Oh, he's talking about the burial, is he?
I think he's talking about the burial. Maybe that's the Lowell family plot.
Very good. All right, guys. So that was excellent. Thank you very much, everyone in the comments, and thanks to our gentleman here. Thanks, David. Hope your cold clears up.
Me too.
Thank you, Jerry.
Nice
good
talk,
luck
David.
good luck with Paddy's Day in Singapore.
We'll send you some video of that, Gav. That's bound to be an entertaining afternoon.
You might have a visitor coming soon. Are we allowed to talk about that?
Oh, I don't know if he'll turn up this time, but he might turn up. You never know. We're going to drop a flag in one of those tops that David is so proudly wearing down to Marina Bay Sands at the weekend, because our resident, what did Stephen call him? A resident royalist Tory something as Celtic supporting royalist Tory something is playing in Singapore on the 16th and 17th. So the last time
Rod Stewart you're talking about,
yes,
for everyone who's
that's
not
the
picking up on that.
The last time the gentleman was in town, he did come and visit the Singapore Celtic Supporters Club and watch a game with us. So let's see.
And Michael in Glasgow, you're probably just jumping on to another pod as soon as this one finishes, are you?
No, just having a me day. and then with the Celtic game on Saturday, and then St Patrick's Day on Sunday. You noticed I said St Patrick's Day there.
Patrick, yes, not the other one.
No, not the other one. But looking forward to that as well. Hopefully celebrating a good win for Celtic, and that's really it for me. I'll maybe write another article this week, but looking at Celtic, we're kind of dialing down a wee bit for international break, and then hopefully after that we bounce back into life.
Fantastic. On that positive note, we'll leave it there. Take it easy, everyone. See you on the next one.
See you guys.